The Galactic Council chamber was vast, a cold, metallic room floating in the middle of space. The council members from different species sat around a large round table that stretched for miles, their bright, alien eyes scanning holographic displays. The quiet hum of the room filled the air, and tension hung heavy like a storm cloud, ready to burst. The council had gathered to discuss something serious, something no one had expected. A new enemy had appeared in the galaxy. This enemy was swift, ruthless, and expanding quickly. The council members had already heard rumors about this new threat, an aggressive faction known for its ability to destroy entire planets in a blink of an eye. It was a force unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, and it had begun its march toward the core systems, threatening everything in its path. The council was worried, very worried. But as the council leaders discussed the growing crisis, one thing was missing, something that surprised everyone. There was no word from Earth, no message from the humans, no representative from the most powerful species in the galaxy. The humans, known for their strength, their technology, and their military might, had always been involved in every galactic decision, even if only as a silent observer. But today, nothing. Silence. The representative from the Zoreth species spoke first, their reptilian face twisted into a frown as they studied the empty chair that should have been occupied by a human ambassador. "Where are the humans?" the Zoreth leader asked, their voice cold and sharp. "Why are they not responding to the council's summons?" A murmur swept through the chamber. Every species here knew the importance of humanity's participation in the council. Humans had always been reliable, even if their nature leaned toward diplomacy. But today, the chamber was empty of human presence. The Zoreth leader glanced around, waiting for an answer. The Hruvok leader, a species known for their deep wisdom and ancient traditions, was the next to speak. Their eyes glowed faintly with an inner light. "I fear this may not be a simple matter. Humans are not often late. This absence is troubling." Troubling. It's more than troubling. The leader of the Vrizens interjected. The Vrizens were a species of massive, muscular beings who valued strength and action above all else. The humans are a force to be reckoned with. If they are not responding, it could mean they are preparing for something much larger. Perhaps they are afraid. The Zoreth leader suggested with a sneer. "We've all heard the rumors. The humans are not as strong as they once were. Their empire is fading. Maybe they've lost the will to fight." The room fell into an uneasy silence. Everyone knew the humans had always preferred peace over war. Despite their strength, they had been the peacemakers of the galaxy, intervening only when absolutely necessary. But the situation was different now. This new enemy was unlike any the Council had ever faced. It was an aggressive force, and the human silence raised suspicions. "There's more to this than just fear," the Hruvok leader said, his voice slow and deliberate. "The humans, they are a patient people. They've always taken their time, considered their options, weighed the consequences. Perhaps their silence is not fear, but something else, something deeper." "What do you mean by that?" the Vrizhen leader growled, not entirely convinced. "I believe the humans are watching," the Hruvok continued, his eyes narrowing. "They are waiting, calculating, and when they act, it will not be a simple show of strength. It will be something more. They will make a decision that will shake the very foundations of this galaxy." The council fell silent. The other species exchanged glances, unsure of what to make of the Hruvok's cryptic words. The Vrizhen leader scoffed, dismissing the idea. "Are you suggesting that humans have some grand plan? That they are preparing for something monstrous?" The Vrizhen's voice was filled with doubt. The Hruvok leader did not answer directly, but his expression grew darker. "All I am saying is that you should not underestimate them. They are patient, but when their patience runs out, it is not something anyone will forget." A chill ran through the room as those words hung in the air. The council members had never seen the humans like this before. They had always been predictable, always hesitant to act, unless they had no other choice. But now, for the first time, They were not present. They were absent when the galaxy needed them most. The Zoreth leaders shifted uncomfortably in their seat. Perhaps we should proceed with the discussion anyway. We can't wait forever for the humans to show up. The Fruvok nodded slowly. Proceed, but keep your eyes open. The humans may not be here now, but when they return, they will not be the same. A wave of unease swept over the room. The council continued to discuss the rising threat, but the atmosphere was now tense. The absence of the humans loomed large, and every leader was aware that something was about to change. Something big. The quiet, peaceful galaxy they had known was on the verge of unraveling. The humans were no longer the allies they once were. The galaxy had pushed them too far. As the council meeting carried on, the sound of a distant, familiar hum echoed from the far reaches of the room. The lights flickered, and the doors opened. For the first time, the representatives of the galaxy heard the familiar, heavy footsteps of human soldiers. The humans were here, and their silence had ended. The storm was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The unseen forces. The Galactic Council had been uneasy ever since the humans' sudden silence. Their absence from the meeting had caused more than just confusion. It had stirred fear. The entire galaxy was watching, waiting for the inevitable action the humans were preparing for. But what no one knew was that the humans were already on the move, their actions unfolding in the shadows of the galaxy, unseen by any who might have been paying attention. On Earth, in a highly classified military facility buried deep beneath the surface, a select group of human leaders had gathered. This meeting, unlike any the galaxy had witnessed before, was a rare assembly of the highest-ranking officers, strategists, and experts. Humans who had witnessed the unraveling of their peaceful ways and who had, over the years, grown tired of waiting. Commander Rachel Owens stood at the head of the table. Her gaze was steady and unwavering as she looked at the holographic projections of the galactic map before her. There was a cold determination in her eyes, a stark contrast to the diplomacy that humans were once known for. Her team had seen what the galaxy had become. Fractured, filled with opportunistic species that preyed on the weak and ruled by those who cared little for the lives of others. "We've waited long enough," Commander Owens said, her voice firm but calm. "The galaxy is in chaos, and we've done nothing but watch. It's time to change that." Her words hung in the air, cutting through the tension in the room like a blade. Across the table, General Marcus Hall, a man known for his tactical brilliance, leaned forward. His expression mirrored hers, one of grim understanding. Unlike the Council, who only reacted to the galaxy's problems, humanity had always been the observers, waiting, always watching, and never taking the first move. But now, those days were over. There's no more room for diplomacy. No more waiting for the right moment. General Hall said, his voice low and steady. "The enemy we face doesn't respond to kindness or patience. We've seen how they work. They only understand one thing: force." Commander Owens nodded, her fingers tracing the holographic map, zooming in on the systems where the enemy was causing havoc. There was a growing list of planets being attacked, systems left in ruins, their populations decimated. The enemy moved like a swarm, crushing everything in their path. "Look at what they've done," Owens muttered. "They don't care about peace. They don't care about anything except power. We've made mistakes by believing we could negotiate with them. We've been too patient." The room fell silent. The weight of their words was not lost on anyone present. For decades, humans had been known for their diplomacy, their desire to find peaceful solutions. But the galaxy had changed, and so had the humans. "Our patience," Owens continued, her tone growing colder, "has been mistaken for weakness. We gave the galaxy the benefit of the doubt, tried to play by the rules. But now, we will rewrite those rules." Across the table, Commander Lucas Carter, a former soldier turned strategist, stood up. His eyes were sharp, his movements precise. "You're right, Rachel. The galaxy underestimated us, but they won't do that again. We can't be passive anymore." There was no hesitation in his voice. The room of high-ranking officials knew the time for passive diplomacy was long over. The humans had been pushed to their limit, and now they were ready to take action. It was not just a matter of survival anymore. It was about the future of humanity and the galaxy. We've been building something, the project we've been working on for the last few years. It's time to activate it, Owen said. The others nodded in agreement, their minds racing. The project had been kept secret for years, and only a few in the room even knew of its existence. The scale of the project was immense, far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. It was the ultimate contingency plan, an answer to the galaxy's growing darkness. "You're talking about the warships?" General Hall asked, his voice filled with a mix of awe and disbelief. "Yes," Owens replied. "They're ready, but we need to send a message, one that can't be ignored. We'll show them that humanity's patience has run out. They'll know we are no longer the diplomats. We are no longer the observers. We are the storm." The room was filled with a tense silence. The decision had been made. No more negotiations, no more waiting. Humanity was about to take action, and it would change the course of the galaxy forever. As the meeting concluded, the high-ranking officers left the room, each carrying with them the knowledge that they had just made the most important decision in the history of humanity. They would no longer remain passive. The time had come for humanity to act, to show the galaxy what happens when their patience finally runs out. Meanwhile, in the vast, cold expanse of space, the first signs of humanity's new course began to take shape. The warships, cloaked in secrecy, began to move into position. A fleet of unimaginable size, capable of striking with devastating force, was slowly assembling in the hidden corners of the galaxy. The first step had been taken. The storm was approaching. The enemy had no idea what was coming, and when the humans unleashed their fury, they would make sure the galaxy would never forget what happened when humanity's patience ran out. The first strike. The galaxy had been caught in a delicate balance for centuries, an endless dance of alliances, peace talks, and tentative truces. Species from across the stars had learned to live side by side, each following their own agendas, yet always wary of the unknown. Until now, humanity had been the silent observer, waiting in the shadows as the galaxy grew darker. But now, the balance was about to be shattered. The humans had made their decision, and it was time for the galaxy to learn what happened when their patience finally snapped. The warships, long hidden in the depths of space, were ready. A fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, each ship a testament to human ingenuity and strength. Cloaked in secrecy, the fleet began to move, silently crossing the galaxy toward their destination. The commanders and crew were focused, knowing that this moment would define the future of humanity and the future of the galaxy. Commander Rachel Owens stood at the helm of the flagship, the Resolute. The massive ship was a marvel of engineering, equipped with advanced technology that had been kept secret from the galaxy. The human flag was raised high on the ship's stern, a symbol of defiance and strength. For Rachel, this was the culmination of years of preparation, planning, and sacrifice. She had seen what the galaxy had become, weak, divided, and corrupt, and she knew that the time for diplomacy was long past. "All systems are green," Lieutenant Carter reported from his station. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that betrayed his excitement. They were ready. "Deploy the fleet," Owens ordered, her voice steady, betraying no hint of the intensity that was swirling inside her. One by one, the rest of the warships came to life, emerging from their hidden positions and forming a formidable armada. The fleet was vast, hundreds of ships, each a symbol of humanity's resolve. But it wasn't just the sheer size of the fleet that made it so powerful. It was the technology inside each vessel, the weapons, the shields, the tactics that no one had ever seen before. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had failed to see what was coming, and now it was too late. The fleet moved with precision, crossing the vast expanse of space toward the first target. the enemy's stronghold on the outer rim of the galaxy. This was the moment when the galaxy would realize that humanity was not just another species among many. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the fleet approached the target, the commanders aboard each ship remained in constant communication, coordinating their movements with military precision. This was no haphazard assault. Every move had been carefully calculated, every step planned down to the smallest detail. The enemy would have no chance to respond. Rachel's eyes narrowed as she stared at the approaching stronghold on the holoscreen. It was a large, heavily fortified station, surrounded by smaller ships and defenses. The enemy had made their move to control this part of the galaxy, but they had underestimated one thing: humans don't fight fair. They don't fight the way others do. They fight to win. Target locked, the weapons officer reported, ready to fire on command. Rachel took a deep breath, her gaze never leaving the enemy station. This was it, the moment when humanity would show the galaxy that their patience was not a sign of weakness, but of restraint. The first strike would not only send a message to the enemy, it would send a message to the entire galaxy. Fire. The order was simple, but it carried the weight of everything that had led up to this moment. In an instant, the Resolute unleashed a barrage of energy, its weapons cutting through the vastness of space with deadly accuracy. The other ships in the fleet followed suit, each releasing their own devastating attack. The enemy was caught completely off guard. Their defenses were strong, but they weren't prepared for the ferocity of the human assault. The first wave hit the enemy stronghold with incredible force, shaking the very foundations of the station. Explosions rocked the station as the shields failed, and the once mighty stronghold began to break apart under the weight of the human assault. The chaos was immediate. Ships that had once appeared invincible were torn apart in the blink of an eye. The enemy ships scattered, trying to flee or regroup, but it was too late. Humanity had struck with the precision and strength of a hammer coming down on an anvil. There was no escape. On board the Resolute, Commander Owens watched the devastation unfold, her expression unreadable. There was no joy in this for her. This was not about vengeance. This was about sending a message, about making it clear that humanity would no longer tolerate the growing threat from this enemy and the complacency of the galaxy. The battle raged on. But the enemy was already beaten. They had failed to anticipate the full strength of humanity. They had failed to see that humans were not a species to be trifled with. The enemy had made a fatal mistake, and now they were paying the price. As the last enemy ships were destroyed, and the station crumbled into ruins, the human fleet stood victorious. But this was only the beginning. The galaxy had just witnessed the first strike of humanity's wrath. The storm had come, and it was only going to get worse from here. Rachel Owens stood tall, her gaze steady as she watched the aftermath of the battle. The message had been sent. The galaxy would never forget this moment, the moment when humanity's patience finally ran out. "Prepare for the next phase," Owens said quietly, her voice cold with determination. "The galaxy is about to learn what happens when we fight back." The fleet turned its course, leaving the shattered remains of the enemy stronghold behind. They were ready for whatever came next. The galaxy would know the name of humanity, and they would remember it, long after the dust had settled. The reckoning. The galaxy was in shock. The news of humanity's first strike had spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the galaxy in a matter of hours. Across countless worlds and star systems, alien leaders scrambled to make sense of what had just happened. No one had seen this coming. Humanity had kept their intentions hidden. But now the truth was clear. They had been biding their time, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now that moment had arrived. The Galactic Council, once the governing body that maintained peace among the stars, was in chaos. Representatives from all species were arguing vehemently, accusing each other of failing to act quickly enough. Some demanded immediate retaliation, while others suggested negotiation. But there was one thing they all agreed on. The galaxy could no longer ignore humanity. The Deathworlders had made their move, and they were not going to back down. Commander Rachel Owens stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring out at the swirling stars ahead. The fleet had completed its first mission, but this was far from over. Humanity had shown the galaxy its strength, but now they had to prepare for the consequences. The rest of the galaxy was about to respond. The galaxy's leaders would not let this act of defiance go unanswered. It was only a matter of time before the full force of the galaxy would come crashing down on humanity. "Commander," Lieutenant Carter said, his voice breaking the silence, "we've intercepted a transmission from the Galactic Council. They've called for an emergency meeting. It looks like they're going to take action." Rachel nodded grimly. She knew that this was coming. The galaxy would not allow a single species to rise above the rest. The Council would unite, and humanity would be its target. But what the Council didn't understand was that humanity had prepared for this moment. They had anticipated the galaxy's reaction. They had calculated every move. And now, they were ready. "Set a course for the Council's headquarters," Rachel ordered. "We're going to give them something to talk about." The Resolute and the rest of the fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the center of galactic politics. The Council was located on a massive space station orbiting a star at the heart of the galaxy. It was a place where the most powerful beings in the universe convened to make decisions that affected entire civilizations. It was a place of diplomacy, where words were more dangerous than weapons, and where decisions could shape the course of history. But now, the galaxy was going to see just how dangerous humanity could be when pushed too far. As they neared the Council station, the fleet came to a halt, positioning itself just outside the station's defensive perimeter. The fleet's appearance was a clear message. Humanity was not afraid. They had come here not to negotiate, but to demand respect. They had shown their strength in the first strike, and now they would make sure that the galaxy understood the consequences of crossing them. "Commander," Lieutenant Carter said again, "we're being hailed by the Council. They want to speak with you." Rachel walked up to the communications console and activated the transmission. The screen flickered, and a group of Council members appeared, alien representatives from across the galaxy, their faces a mix of shock and anger. "This is an unprecedented move," Commander Owens, one of the Council leaders, an insectoid species, said in a gravely voice. "Humanity has violated the laws of the Galactic Council. You are not above the law." Rachel stood tall, her gaze unyielding. "We never asked to be part of your council," replied. "You have kept your peace while the galaxy has been torn apart by corrupt leaders, ruthless conquerors, and endless war. Humanity has suffered, and now we are done watching from the sidelines. You want to know why we avoided war for so long? Because we knew it was the only way to stop the madness. But now, the time for restraint has ended. We've made our move, and you'll see what happens when humanity is pushed too far." The Council members exchanged uneasy glances. Some seemed to understand the gravity of Rachel's words, while others were still in denial. They had always viewed humanity as weak, too concerned with peace and diplomacy to fight. But now they were faced with a force unlike any they had ever encountered. The galaxy's collective arrogance had blinded them to the true power of humanity. They had underestimated the human spirit, the unyielding resolve that could turn the tide of any battle. "This is not the answer, Commander," another Council representative, a reptilian species, said with a hiss. "You cannot hope to defeat us all. The galaxy will retaliate." Rachel's expression remained unwavering. "Let them come," she said, her voice cold. "We'll be ready." The communication ended abruptly, but the tension remained thick in the air. The Council's response was inevitable. They would unite to crush humanity, to put an end to this rebellion before it could spread. But what they didn't realize was that humanity had already anticipated their next move. The warships in Rachel's fleet were not just military tools. They were symbols of human innovation, resilience, and determination. They were humanity's answer to a galaxy that had ignored them for far too long. As the Resolute and its fleet prepared to move, Rachel felt a sense of certainty wash over her. The galaxy had awakened a sleeping giant, and there was no turning back now. The first strike had been only the beginning. The true reckoning was just beginning, and the rest of the galaxy would soon realize the true power of humanity. "We're ready," Rachel muttered to herself, her eyes narrowing. Let the galaxy learn the price of underestimating humanity. The calm before the storm breaks. As the Resolute and its fleet lingered just outside the Galactic Council's headquarters, the tension was palpable. The crew, still reeling from their first successful strike, were now preparing for the inevitable escalation. Commander Rachel Owens stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space ahead. Yet her mind was far from the view. She was thinking about the consequences of humanity's actions. The Council had been clear in their response. Retaliation was coming. What they didn't understand, however, was that humanity had already accounted for their next move. The crew members moved with focused urgency, preparing for a battle they knew was coming but could not predict with certainty. Every starship under Rachel's command had been modified for the fight ahead, not just with advanced weaponry, but with new defensive systems and strategies designed specifically to combat the vast technological might of the Council's fleets. "Commander, the Council has dispatched their fleet," Lieutenant Carter reported, his voice tense. "It's larger than we anticipated. Over 200 ships. They're moving to intercept." Rachel's hand tightened around the edge of her console. The Council was sending everything they had, a show of force designed to break humanity's resolve. But Rachel knew that while the numbers might be in the Council's favor, humanity had something they didn't: the will to fight and the edge of unpredictability. "Raise shields and prepare the fleet," Rachel ordered, her voice steady but with an undercurrent of certainty. "We'll give them a fight they'll never forget." Her crew moved swiftly, responding to her commands with discipline born of years of training. But Rachel's mind wandered briefly, reflecting on the path that had led to this moment. Humanity had been patient for far too long, watching the galaxy fall into chaos under the rule of powerful, self-interested species. They had watched their friends, their colonies, their allies, and even their own people suffer, caught in the crossfire of intergalactic wars and political maneuvering. The time for diplomacy had passed. The time for action had arrived. As the Council fleet approached, Rachel's tactical officers were ready. They had studied the enemy ships, analyzed their movements, and anticipated their tactics. Unlike the Council, who underestimated humanity's ability to plan for a war they had avoided for so long, Rachel's fleet was designed to strike fast, hit hard, and never relent. "Ready the weapons," Rachel ordered. "Give them a taste of our power." The silence on the bridge was deafening as the crew awaited the command to launch. It was a quiet moment before the storm, but in that stillness, the weight of their actions loomed large. Humanity had struck first, showing the galaxy they were not afraid to defend themselves. And now, with the Council's fleet bearing down on them, it was time to show that they could finish what they had started. In the Council's massive, sleek warships, the alien leaders were in the midst of their own preparations. Representatives from various species, some insectoid, some reptilian, others humanoid, were gathered in a large conference room, discussing strategy and options. But there was one thing they all agreed on: the humans had to be crushed, or their power would be a lasting threat to the galaxy. "Those Deathworlders don't know what they've unleashed," one of the reptilian representatives hissed, his tail lashing in frustration. "We have to end this rebellion now, or we risk losing everything." "They've crossed a line," another council member added, slamming a fist on the table. "We cannot allow them to challenge the authority of the Galactic Council. The balance of power must be restored." But the Council's decision-making process was slow, as it always had been. While they bickered and debated, Rachel Owens was already moving into position, her fleet preparing for a battle that was inevitable but could still be decided by strategy, speed, and sheer willpower. Back on the Resolute, Rachel took a deep breath. The thought of all the lives that would be lost weighed heavily on her heart, but she knew it was the price of survival. The galaxy had pushed humanity to this point, and now there was no turning back. "Activate the weapons," Rachel said firmly. "Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." The massive ships of the fleet powered up, their weapon systems charging with a low hum. The deadly energy surges from the weapons built into the Resolute and its sister ships flickered across the vast expanse of space, ready to strike. Outside, the enemy fleet approached, forming a massive crescent formation as they prepared to engage. Their ships were powerful, their weapons designed for devastation, but they were not prepared for the speed and unpredictability that humanity brought to the table. Every ship in the fleet had been modified, made to outmaneuver and outblast their enemies. The Council ships were built for traditional warfare, slow and methodical. Humanity's ships, on the other hand, were designed to hit hard and fast, striking before the enemy even knew what hit them. As the two fleets moved toward each other, time seemed to slow. The calm before the storm was palpable. The crew of the Resolute was ready for what came next. They had trained for this moment. They had prepared for this fight. And now they were about to show the galaxy just how far humanity would go to protect its future. The first shots rang out across the void. The first strike. The chaos erupted faster than anyone had anticipated. The moment the first energy pulses crackled through the air, the stillness of space shattered. Humanity's fleet unleashed a barrage of precision strikes, and the Council's ships reeled back in surprise. They had not expected the Resolute and its sister ships to strike so quickly, and they had certainly not expected such accuracy. "Report." Commander Rachel Owen's voice rang out, clear and commanding above the noise of the bridge. She stood tall, her gaze fixed on the holographic display before her, where every movement of the battle was being tracked in real time. "First hit confirmed. Targeted their lead ship," Lieutenant Carter reported, his fingers flying over the console. "The shields are down. We've breached their hull." The sound of cheers erupted in the background, but Rachel remained focused. This was just the beginning. The Resolute had only fired the first volley, but the Council's forces were beginning to retaliate. The space around them lit up with energy beams, some dodging past them, while others shook the ship with violent tremors. Yet the crew held their ground, pushing forward with relentless speed. On the Council's flagship, chaos unfolded in the wake of the initial strike. The Council's top military leaders had assumed that humanity would cower, negotiating peace or retreating back to their isolated homeworld. Instead, they were met with a precise, well-coordinated strike that left them reeling. "What is this madness?" one of the Council's commanders bellowed as his ship's shields flickered under the onslaught. "They're not following the rules of warfare. They're not playing by any rules," the fleet strategist replied with a grimace. "The humans, they're too unpredictable, too fast. We need to reassess our approach." Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Rachel observed the enemy's response with a calculating eye. The Council was disorganized, responding to the attack with uncoordinated strikes. They were too slow to keep up, bogged down by their overconfidence and reliance on traditional tactics. The time to strike had come, and humanity wasn't going to waste it. "Engage Phase 2, Rachel ordered. The Resolute and its fleet of ships moved swiftly through space, dodging enemy fire and launching additional waves of devastating attacks. Their ships, though not as large as the Council's, were faster, equipped with energy shields that adapted to enemy weapons, making it difficult for the Council to land a direct hit. The humans' ability to absorb incoming fire and then retaliate with pinpoint accuracy left the Council fleet scrambling for answers. The first wave of Council reinforcements arrived too late. By the time they had gathered, humanity had already incapacitated two of their ships, and the Resolute was closing in on the flagship. The battle had taken a dramatic turn. What had started as a simple raid had turned into a full-scale clash between two fleets, and the balance of power in the galaxy was beginning to shift. "Prepare for the final assault," Rachel commanded, her voice resolute. "This ends today." The crew worked quickly, fine-tuning their systems, preparing the next wave of attacks. They had one chance to finish this battle and send a message to the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the Council flagship, panic began to spread. Their forces had lost several ships in quick succession, and their strategy had failed to adapt to the speed and aggression of humanity's fleet. Their tactics are beyond anything we've ever encountered, the lead commander shouted, gripping his chair as his ship shook under another barrage. Why aren't they retreating? Why aren't they afraid? They've made it clear, the strategist said, his voice barely audible over the rumble of explosions outside. They're not running. The humans aren't afraid of us. They don't fear death. The realization hit the council leaders like a slap. The humans, the so-called Deathworlders, were not what they had assumed. They were not weak. They were not afraid. And they were no longer going to sit quietly while the galaxy burned. As the battle raged on, Rachel stood firm on the bridge of the Resolute, watching as the enemy began to fall back, disarray setting in. The once proud fleet of the Galactic Council was now scrambling, retreating in chaos, their ships firing aimlessly in every direction. It was clear, humanity had not only caught them off guard, they had taken the fight to them in a way they never expected. But Rachel knew this was just one battle in a much larger war. The Council would regroup, and their fleet would be back, stronger, more determined. But this first strike had sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity had the strength, the skill, and the will to fight back, and they would never back down. Rachel looked around at her crew, her voice steady, despite the weight of their victory. This is just the beginning. We've shown them our strength, but the real battle is yet to come. The first strike was over, but the war was far from finished. The galaxy would remember this day as the day humanity proved that their patience had run out, and they were no longer the prey in the galaxy's dangerous game. The humans were the hunters now, and no one would ever forget what happened when their patience finally snapped. The galaxy's reckoning. The aftermath of the first battle was felt across the galaxy. The once unshakable Galactic Council, now crippled by humanity's unexpected onslaught, scrambled to regroup and salvage what remained of their fleet. News of the Deathworlders' swift victory spread like wildfire. It was a shock that reverberated throughout every corner of space, leaving civilizations stunned, fearful, and unsure of their place in the galaxy's new order. On Earth, the mood was somber but resolute. While the victory was a testament to humanity's strength, it was also a reminder of the price of war. The world's leaders gathered in secret, discussing the uncertain path ahead. Would they pursue more battles? Would they allow the Council to regroup and strike back? Or would humanity attempt to broker a fragile peace? We've proven our strength, Commander Rachel Owens said during a meeting with Earth's top military leaders. But this was only the first wave. The Council will rebuild, and their retaliation will come. It's only a matter of time before they strike back with everything they have. The room fell silent. The tension was palpable. Every leader present knew that this was the moment that would define humanity's future. They had entered the fray. There was no going back. We can't stop now. One of the generals spoke up, his voice firm. The galaxy needs to know that humanity isn't afraid to fight, that we will defend ourselves. We've shown them that we will not be pushed around. But we need to prepare, Rachel countered, her voice measured. We've taken down a few ships, but the Council's fleet is massive. They will learn from their mistakes and come back stronger. We need more than just weapons. We need allies. The discussion continued late into the night, but one thing was clear. Humanity's patience had snapped, and the galaxy would never be the same. The humans had sent a clear message. They were no longer willing to be passive bystanders. They were fighters, warriors who would defend their home at all costs. Meanwhile, the surviving members of the Galactic Council were in turmoil. The unexpected aggression from humanity had shaken them to their core. They had underestimated the Deathworlders, humans who were not the weak, primitive species they had assumed. Instead, they were a species capable of extraordinary survival, deadly tactics, and unyielding determination. How could we have been so blind? One council member lamented in a private meeting. They fought like they had nothing to lose. They've shown us what we're up against, said another, his tone grim. Humanity has the capacity for war, and they will fight. But we cannot allow them to win. In the coming weeks, the council worked tirelessly to rebuild its fleet. However, they knew the war was far from over. The galaxy was on the brink of something monumental, and every species, human and alien alike, was now questioning their future. No one knew what would happen next, but one thing was certain: humanity had earned the respect and the fear of the galaxy. But as the council regrouped, a darker thought began to linger in the minds of the human commanders. What if this war was just the beginning? What if the council's defeat led to even more dangerous foes emerging from the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike? The Resolute and its fleet remained on high alert, knowing the galaxy had been irrevocably changed. They were no longer just soldiers defending their world. They were now the defenders of humanity's place in the cosmos. The burden of that responsibility weighed heavily on Commander Rachel Owens, but she knew there was no turning back. They had crossed the line. There would be no peace until the galaxy understood that humanity would never back down. A quiet message flashed across the command console of the Resolute. It was a report from the far reaches of space, far from the front line, and it was a message that chilled the crew to their bones. We've detected an incoming fleet, unknown origin. They're not with the Council, but they're not allies either. Rachel stared at the screen. The implications were clear. Humanity's fight might have just begun, but the rest of the galaxy was waking up to a truth they had long denied. Humanity wasn't going to be just a bystander in the future of the galaxy. They would shape it. Rachel's voice rang out, clear and firm across the bridge. Ready the fleet. The galaxy is waking up, and we will be ready for whatever comes next. The final message had been sent. Humanity's patience had finally snapped, and there was no turning back now. The war was no longer just a defense of Earth. It was a declaration that humanity would rise, fight, and never surrender. The galaxy would remember this day, and every species would know, deep in their hearts, that humanity was not to be underestimated.